What's up, Bucs Report? What's up, Bucs Report? Bucs Report.
Go Bucs, go Bucs. Go Bucs, go Bucs. Go Bucs, go Bucs. Go Bucs, go Bucs. First and goal, gotta tough it out. Get in the end zone and call a hot route. O-line to beat, Mike down the street and have Humphreys run right underneath. You know it's Bucs ball, we got the hardest D. Bring the pressure to the QB. You know it's routine, we got hard greens. Welcome to Tampa, welcome to Germany. Go Bucs, go Bucs. Reppin' for my team. Go Bucs, go Bucs. You know we want the ring. Go Bucs, go Bucs. Welcome to the Bay. Go Bucs, go Bucs. Tune in with Buccaneer Blake. Bucs back, we can run and toss. Mike Evans looking like Randy Moss. And Jameis make a play after play. On the defense, you can't stop Levante. On my boy McCoy, who you can't avoid. At the Raymond James, you about to feel the pain. If you a Bucs fan, make a lot of noise. If you a Bucs fan, make a lot of noise. Go Bucs.
Hey Bucs Nation, this is Tony Rossi with the Bucs Report. You are tuning in right now for the next live episode of Tony's Take. So every Tuesday night from 8:30 to 9, you're going to get my take on Bucs and NFL current news of the past week. So we have a lot of great stuff to get into. But first, before I do that, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, the Rat Pack Sports Show, for sponsoring this show and this event. So give them a check out on every Wednesday evening at I believe at 7 p.m. So check out their Facebook page, give them a like, give them a listen. They got some great stuff going on over there. So right now we're going to introduce our special guest is Mr. Blake Cabble. So Blake, how's it going tonight, man?
It's going great, Tony. Thanks for having me.
So you not only are you a writer for the Bucs Report, but you have your own podcast. Is that right?
Yeah, it's at buckandblakesports.com. I just get on there and try to, give my opinion, much like yourself. Just go all out and bring your passion to the team that you love and the thing you like to do, and hopefully you can share good experiences and different point of views because, everybody agreeing isn't always this fun. Everybody had to have different point of views. And
right.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and so you have a show that goes on every Thursday afternoon, right?
Correct.
And what time is that, 1 p.m.?
1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Awesome. So, guys, make sure you check out his show, Buck and Blake Podcast, and I believe that we show that live on the Bucs Report Facebook page. So make sure to check that out every Thursday afternoon at 1 p.m. So tonight's show, man, we're going to get started with the offensive line. We have always had over the past few years a subpar offensive line, and with a few additions, the thought would be that, hey, listen, we might actually have a decent offensive line. It's not a group of all-stars, but we might be able to get by. But with the resurgent defensive line in camp, one could say, hey, you know what? Well, maybe this offensive line isn't that good. No disrespect to the defense, but some of those plays I've seen against Donovan Smith and just some of the plays overall, whether it be in the running game or whether in pass coverage, the offensive line just hasn't looked really that good. I mean, what are your thoughts on the offensive line thus far?
Oh, well, we've tried countless times over the years to try to fix this O-line, and it hasn't always worked out. I really got excited a few years back when we got Carl Nicks, and we all know how that ended with the whole Mercer thing. And
yeah.
And then, I can't remember the other right tackle's name. That was a flop. The play right tackle basically stole money from us. But as you said, that the offensive line and Donovan Smith, a lot of last year it was kind of tough for them to stop people on passing downs because we were so predictable. Now you're in 3rd and long, 3rd and 10 and 11. The defense knows you have to pass, and we didn't really have an existing running game. Well, I'll just go out and say we didn't have a running game at all, so it made us very one-dimensional. So teams wouldn't worry about our run threat. So it's easy to pick out what we were doing on offense. So teams could just pin their ears back and rush the quarterback. Winston and Fitzpatrick made best what they could do with the give and take the offensive line. But it's going to be interesting to see this year because we got a few new cogs in the system and people coming back, healthy and all that.
Well, I mean, what do you think about Donovan Smith in particular? Because I feel like he is there out of necessity, not necessarily because he's a great left tackle.
I have to agree. He filled the need at that time. I believe we picked him in the top of the second round, if I'm not mistaken. Um, he filled the need. Man, he might not have been a want, but he was definitely a need, and we had to get some type of offensive lineman at that particular time and moment.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to keep bashing him over. I will say he has been like one of the only consistent linemen on this team. He's been healthy. He doesn't play, as well as we would like him to against premier pass rushers, but he has been there. But hopefully he'll get better. I mean, only time can tell. But I think a run game should help. Like I said previously, we're being predictable. So now people just don't know that you can beat him on a pass rush move because they don't know if we can run or pass. So I'm just hoping for the best with him.
Yeah, no, I am as well. I mean, listen, I think Donovan Smith is he's going to be a starter this year, barring injury. I think that my biggest beef with Donovan Smith is the aspect that not that he is undisciplined, but he seems to be undisciplined because of the penalties that he garnished last year. I mean, he was, I believe, I did an article last season, at least it was like 3/4 through the season, and he was the highest. He collected the most offensive penalties on the offensive line, and a lot of them were offensive holding, and then offsides false starts to add into that. Excuse me. So, I mean, the false starts, I mean, that's just jitters. That's just being undisciplined. But with the offensive holding, that tells me that, and we both know this, is that he's not real quick on his feet. He doesn't really do good against really fast pass rushers. So, like a JPP, for example, is going to give him a nightmare all day long. And so you're going to have some really talented edge rushers, and you are there to protect the quarterback's blind side. And you need to have a good left tackle that has quick feet. So maybe move him inside. That's one thing, and I'll have to look back on it, is if Smith has ever had some time inside, maybe at left guard or right guard. Right guard maybe not so much, but left guard maybe that's an option. Maybe not, but if you move him out of left tackle, the problem is who do you replace him with? I don't think you replace him with an Ali Marpet. I don't think that you replace him with a Kappa or a Benanak or what have you. I mean, there might be some options, but we're already trying to plug holes in the offensive line, and I think Cutter sees, my take on it is, I think Cutter sees a lot of issues on the offensive line, and he's just trying to find the right consistency. And even though he probably is not in love with Donovan Smith, he at least can start. So, and I think he'll figure that he'll take care of the problems on the way. So that's just kind of my take. But thank you guys for joining in. You got James, Corey every week, and then Jamie and Hagen and Evan. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Just drop us a note of where you're repping from. So we have Bucs fans all across the country, all across the globe here. As you know, I rep from DC, and I believe Blake, you're down in Tampa Bay area. So just drop us a note. Hey, where are you watching from? And drop us a question. So I'm seeing a lot of good questions, especially about Smith and him collecting way too many penalties. Keith mentioned, as I just was talking about earlier, maybe he's better at a guard position instead of a left tackle position. And then someone was talking about what are our thoughts for this Thursday. We will get to that. So good question, but stay tuned on that. And if you are just now tuning in, 10 past the half hour, this is Tony's Take with Tony Rossi, my take on current Bucs news and NFL news, and I got my special guest Blake from the Bucs Report. So we're just kind of running through the offensive line, and I think that as we're doing that, we should run through the depth chart as well. Now, the initial depth chart that the Bucs had released, I think they had a little surprise there with the non-announcement of Deshaun Jackson taking the back seat to Godwin, that Godwin would start outside opposite Evans, and then that would leave Jackson either to play directly behind Godwin, or that would leave Jackson to play in the slot, which I personally think would be the best spot for him. But the initial depth chart has him starting at the outside spot opposite Evans, so I think that's interesting. And then running back, and I think this is kind of a tall tale that, hey, listen, this is more of you're giving a nod to your veterans and your perennial starters, and there's still a lot of football, a lot of preseason left to play because you got Rojo that is listed as the third string running back behind Rodgers, which, yeah, that's not going to happen. I mean, it's not even a contest. So what really initially surprised you about the depth chart, if there's any surprises at all for you?
Well, I have to agree with you, with the Godwin thing. But then again, I said this over and over. I said it kind of to myself, or I actually said it to, a friend of mine that I have. He actually played with the Eagles a couple years back when Chip Kelly came in. He's actually really good friends with Deshaun Jackson. His name is Lawrence Coleman. I said to him, I said, Deshaun Jackson doesn't really look happy. I can sense body language. And I was kind of wondering why at first, because I could sense that he doesn't seem happy. I mean, he's giving answers to fans because he has to and say what you want to say, And I kind of say maybe he's kind of feeling that he's taking back seat to Chris Godwin, and then Chris Godwin is putting in the work. When we were at the members only camp, he's there doing extra work. I mean, the boy's ready to play.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I mean, when we drafted Chris Godwin, that draft, I actually had the Bucs picking Godwin where they picked him at. And I said a lot of the things about Chris Godwin on tape he doesn't explode with things that you would fall in love, but he does a lot of the little things right. And in this league, you get by well doing a lot of the things right. And getting open when you need to get open, making plays in one-on-one, blocking when you need to block, simple things. And I think he has the right tools and the right attitude to be where he's slated at now, and I think he could do well. But otherwise than that, the defensive line shouldn't surprise you. The defensive line, to me, when people ask me when they think about Bo Allen and Vita Vea, on the second team, the D-line is basically like a basketball roster. And what I mean with that metaphor is that they come in packages on downs. It's down and distance. What is a run down, or is it a passing situation? That's what you got with the D-line. Finally, we actually have a rotation in there with our D-line. Thank the Lord for that. But much of that didn't surprise me. And you said Rojo. Again, once he plays, I think that'll change. The only other reason that I could think that you get pushed down to 3 is maybe you're subpar in pass blocking. And that's important in this league. That's the only other thing I could think of why you're getting pushed down. But it's way too early. I'm not going to get too into it, but it's too early. We'll see. We'll know much more once everybody plays preseason week 1.
Yeah, I think that Jones is definitely going to play in tandem with Barber because Jason Gardner, he has a comment up that will Jones be our leading rusher. I think by year end he's going to be, but I don't think he's going to be out the gate. He's going to have to earn that spot. Yeah. I mean, the last time that we had a guy start from camp to week 1 as a starter that unset LeGarrette Blount was Doug Martin. And I mean, I think it's too early to say who is the more talented rusher between a Doug Martin and a Jones early in their career. I don't think Doug Martin is as talented now as when he first started. I mean, he gave some new life. He's a different runner than LeGarrette Blount, and he gave us a fresh look. The thing with Martin was he was never able to evolve his game. He just kind of stuck where he was. He never progressed. He just not to say that he was satisfied with where he was, but I don't think that he figured out how to grow past where he was from his rookie year. And then he just, he got into trouble because of that. Like, not like legal trouble, whatever, but he got into developmental trouble. So, I mean, we'll see what he does over in California. But, I mean, if he doesn't, grow from that, I think that he still stays the same old Doug Martin. And I say that all to say that just because you have someone like starting right out of the gate doesn't mean they're going to be an instant success. I think it's a smart play to split the carries with Barber. That doesn't put all the pressure on a rookie. You don't need to put all the pressure on a rookie like that. Give him his opportunities. If he makes most of those opportunities, then just let him go. Let him loose if he has a hot hand, but don't give it to him right out of the gate. Make him earn that spot. There's no reason to rush anything because you have a talented, pass catching core, both at wide receiver and tight end. We obviously have a franchise quarterback in Jameis Winston. Yes, for the first 3 weeks we won't have him. We'll have a backup in Fitzpatrick. Cough, cough, maybe Griffin. Listen, I think that's a long shot, but hey, you never can rule out anything. I think both of those guys can manage the first 3 games. We might not win all 3, but I don't think that necessitates giving him like the lion's share. So to answer your question, sir, yes, I think that overall he will be, but I don't see him starting right out the gate with the lead chunk of the carries there. So just getting to some questions real quick, and then we'll go back to the depth chart. Winston will get re-signed in 2020 is what Corey Brown says. Maybe. I would say last year, despite what people would say was an up and down year, that absolutely. I mean, he is he's your franchise quarterback. I mean, he has talent. His ceiling is a lot higher than anybody else's from his draft class. And I would even argue to say that he is a top of the middle tier quarterback, a top 15 quarterback that could work himself into the top 10 very easily if he just becomes a little more disciplined in the turnover arena, because he forces too many balls and he knows that. Yeah, he might. I wouldn't rule that out, but with all of the chatter and the suspension and just all the drama surrounding that, I don't think it's a slam dunk. And that's nothing against Winston. I think that he's fully capable of being re-signed, but I think that they're going to make him earn that contract extension. What do you think, Blake?
I agree, Tony. You're going to have to earn the spot, and you touch a lot of good things, so I'm going to kind of piggyback off of some of them, so bear with me here. I've said before, I'm starting to see changes in this team, and it has to start from the top on down, from the parents to the kids. Sorry to use the players as kids, but it's just using it as a metaphor here. And that comes from Cutter. See, now the Cutter stepped away from being the offensive play caller and giving it to Monkey. Now he's doing the right things as a head coach. He can focus on stuff like making the right decision with who starts, who's going in what packages and stuff like that, and worried about it. If you're going to go on future with Winston, of course, Light's going to have a say in that. But, and I noticed Winston's wearing a glove on his hand now. Maybe that is because to help prevent the fumbles now. And with the glove, I noticed he wears a glove now, and he's kind of taken a step back and kind of humbled himself with the team, and he wants to be the leader and do the right things. Of course, you got to get past this thing with the 3-game suspension and stuff like that. But we got to get through that as a team.
For sure.
And I think they will re-sign him. I think Winston will get through this. He's got to eliminate the turnovers. You got to stop trying to do too much. And I think it was Deshaun Jackson that said that, Tony.
Yeah.
You got to stop trying to impress everybody.
Yep. That's exactly what he said.
Do your job, and the people will love you. Do your job.
Yep.
They will love you. Wins will help. Forget about it. A lot of your insecurities and things like that, the wins will help. But just do your job, man. You can still go out and kiss babies and shake hands and do all that, but just do your job.
Yeah, I mean, he has the charisma, right? He has all the intangibles. And I think that he gets, and I think this is where Jackson was getting to last season, he gets too excited. That's when you start eating W's. That's when you start doing this some wonky stuff. And with his, and I do not know Jameis Winston personally, so this is just kind of like a looking from the outside in assessment, but with his type of personality, from what I understand, from his type of personality that he shows us on a public level, is those types of guys are all in or they're all out, and you get the good with the bad. and that's just the way it is. And it's really hard for them to do otherwise. So, I mean, I think that Jameis Winston had a reality call. Now, again, he is for sure cleaned up his act these last 2 years, but he's paying a consequence of some past mistakes. So, and I think that kind of shook him to his core, especially with the addition of his new child. And I think that that kind of gives you a little bit of perspective. I mean, Blake, I don't know if you're a father, but I have 2 kids myself, and I mean, I know when I became a father, with when my youngest daughter came into the world, it just changed my world, right? I'm like, holy crap, I'm more responsible than just for myself and my wife. I mean, I got a kid now. I got to take care of this thing. So, and I think that kind of changes some things on a personal level, and I think that's what we tend to miss. And Keith made a comment offline, and we were talking about this, is that it is very easy, and it's on a separate subject, but it's very easy to lose sight that these players, these athletes, are actually people, and they have lives, they have struggles, convictions, so on and so forth. But they're people, and they go through a lot of different things, and so this is something that he is working through right now. But getting to one more question before we go back to the depth chart, which is kind of answers a question in the depth chart. Hagen asked if or someone asked it if JPP will start right away. Yeah, he's going to start right away. He will be a defensive end. There's even been talk of him moving inside to defensive tackle next to Gerald McCoy. So I think that I think it's an absolute no-brainer. There is no reason why JPP, Pierre-Paul, should not be a starter. Now, remember this: you can start the first snap of every game and then not play for the rest of the game, and you're still a starter, right? So you're looking at more, what is the percentage of play? How many snaps are these guys playing per game? And what scenarios, what packages are they playing in? And I would estimate that you will definitely see Pierre-Paul in the upwards of like the Gerald McCoy range of snaps per game. Because they need that. At the same time, they're going to rotate out. So you could probably see them fluctuate within the 60%, snaps per game level, and then that's when you're probably going to work in someone like Vita Vea. He's going to do most of his work inside, and then you get Curry, and others. I mean, obviously you can't forget about Jared McCoy. Jared McCoy needs his relief. You got Noah Spence that is a situational pass rusher, and I think as he starts to hone in on those pass rushing skills even further, his role could expand, especially if there's injuries down the stretch. So if you guys are just joining in, just leave us a comment about where you are watching from. There's a lot of Bucs fans across the nation, just not in Tampa Bay. So tell us where you're repping it from. Leave us a comment. Leave us a question about tonight's show, some of the topics that we're talking about. Right now we're going through the depth chart. Just wanted to give a quick shout out to tonight's sponsor for tonight's show, the Rat Pack Sports Show. It's the newest up-and-coming sports show for the Tampa Bay area. You can catch them every Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. They got a Facebook page. Give them a like on Facebook. We have their page shared on the Bucs Report Facebook page. So give them a like, give them a share, give them a listen every Wednesday evening. So thank you for sponsoring the show. And continue to comment and continue to ask questions, and we'll answer those as much as possible throughout the remainder of the show. So the last thing I wanted to touch on with the depth chart, and I just wanted to bring that back up here, is the defensive back. So what I really thought was interesting is that you got Vernon Hargreaves that is, starting opposite Brent Grimes, and then you got Ryan Smith starting behind Hargreaves, and then Javian Elliott, and then starting at the right cornerback position would be Carlton Davis, and then Brent Grimes, and behind Ben Grimes is Carlton Davis, and then MJ Stewart. Which is actually quite surprising the way they kind of had that stacked up, because I think on ESPN's initial depth chart, I mean, this didn't really come from the Bucs, but I mean, they get a really good feel of how things are going, but they had MJ Stewart starting behind Hargreaves opposite Grimes, and then starting behind Grimes was Carlton Davis. Do you think, Blake, that Hargraves starting opposite Grimes is just a nod to his seniority? And do you think that MJ Stewart or Carlton Davis would actually start opposite Brent Grimes? Or really, do you think that he's had a really good camp and he's kind of proven the coaching staff otherwise, and that, hey, watch out, I'm just not giving up my spot?
Ooh, that's a good one, Tony. It's kind of hard to say a little bit what's going to happen with not Brent Grimes, but Vernon Hargraves. I mean, I'm starting to think, does he really want to play on the outside? I mean,
Yeah.
We said this best, and we couldn't really do it last year. Hargraves is best in a man-to-man coverage press. He is not his own coverage corner. Those who are Gators fans know what I'm talking about. And he can play that in the nickel spot. You playing press and you're playing man on a receiver. I mean, granted, that's why I said sometimes in the depth chart you can't play too much into it. Maybe they don't know quite yet who's going to be where. Everything's up for debate right now with 4 preseason games left to play. Well, really 3 of them, but because the 4th one's going to be more for the guys that are barely going to make the roster. But I think Carlton Davis will be the second corner, and I think Hargraves is going to go to the slot position. Now, granted, there might be packages where they're both might be Grimes and Hargraves at the 1 and the 2. It's a possibility. It's all about packages, Tony. You heard Ayer say, we ran same coverages, but same formations, but only 2 different coverages. Kind of like what you heard T.O. said. We ran the same plays with no different variations. Well, like I was saying previously, you make yourself predictable both on offense and on defense here because you're not running different variations out of the formations. But I think it's going to be real interchangeable with this defense. And that's why a lot of people were scratching their heads why we picked up MJ Stewart. I'm telling you, MJ Stewart is going to be a necessary cog in this team because this boy is so versatile. He could play safety if we needed him too, because he's got the size for it. Now he got the range. I said, but he is very good down in the box making tackles, and he's got size on him. So, like I said, I'm very interested to see how we're gonna move everything around. I'm just excited for once that we've got depth to make these moves like that. We're not putting all our eggs in one basket and 2 players, much like you were saying with Rojo. And you made a great point on Rojo. Don't put all the weight on a rookie right away. It's not needed. I said, and it's just too much pressure. And I talked to Larry Johnston a lot on Twitter about mental health and stuff like that. And you said these guys are just these guys are people too. Right. Listen to Brian Dawkins' speech. You should. I mean, don't just get hyped because he's a player that you listen to what the man is saying. He was a young player and he dealt with with depression and issues. He thought about killing himself. And you think because these guys got money and their lives are sweet. No, it's not. Yeah. They've got issues to deal with. They've got stuff to go on in their lives. And I think we got to set ourselves back from fans and do realize that these people are people. Yep. The money doesn't – stop getting wrapped up in money. It's that these people are people.
Yeah, it is. It's very easy to lose sight of that. And I think that Vernon Hargraves – it went through a bit of a confidence issue. And I think at the end of last season when he found a really good groove and it started out in the slot and he was really good. He was one of the top-rated slot corners in the league. And I don't think that was just because of the schedule. I really do think it was because he did put up some really, good games and really good efforts. But, I mean, I also think that he's also had a decent camp. And I think that it gives him a good shot to retain that starting corner where he gets the majority of snaps at that corner opposite Brent Grimes. But I think that, kind of what we were talking about earlier, it's all about the packages. It's all about, the looks that the offense is giving us on any given Sunday. So it might put Vernon Hargraves in the slot, and it might put Vernon Hargraves in the corner, outside corner position. But I would think that long-term, as a whole, you would want to see Vernon Hargraves play in the slot majority of the time. And I would like to see MJ Stewart in that corner opposite Brent Grimes, and then have Carlton Davis come in and relieve Brent Grimes, because he does need some relief. I mean, he isn't any spring chicken. I mean, again, no disrespect to Grimes, but Father Time is going to hit, and when it does, you need someone that's going to be able to fill in. And I do see Carlton Davis as really that guy that could. I mean, no one's a slam dunk, but he could potentially fill in those shoes this season if needed. And then I would love to see some more slot play by Carlton Davis. Really, Carlton Davis, MJ Stewart, and Vernon Hargreaves, you could make the argument for them to either be on the outside corner or on the slot. I think out of those three, Vernon Hargreaves makes the most sense to me in the slot, but I mean, I think that we'll find out what happens down the stretch. So the last position I wanted to address was safety. So you might not know this, being new to the Bucs report, but I do not like Chris Conte. I may think that he's a good person, but I do not see him as a good safety. He, for too many years, has been suspect. He's been on the wrong end of the highlight reel. He's always seemed to get burned at the wrong opportunities. Yes, he has made some great plays down the stretch, and yes, he has won a couple of games because of some key plays he's made at the end of a couple games. But I don't think that the few justifies the whole in this case. I think that he is serviceable enough to fill in the shoes temporarily. But I think that you need someone like Whitehead or Tandy to start with Justin Evans at safety. I don't see him getting the majority of the snaps. If Chris Conte gets the majority of the snaps in any given Sunday, I think that there is something wrong with Mike Smith and the rest of the defensive coaches over there. There's no reason why Chris Conte should be starting, and not just starting, but he shouldn't get the majority of the snaps. I do not feel like that is right, but he is. You got Justin Evans on the initial depth chart, then you have Chris Conte, and then behind Chris Conte you have Tandy, and then you have Whitehead behind Tandy as a third stringer. I don't know if that, again, is just you're giving the veteran the nod, or maybe Whitehead is not having as good of a camp as we would like him to have. But at any rate, I don't agree that Conte is the answer. What are your thoughts?
Well, where do we start? We'll start with Conte. I said Conte does get a lot of hate, a lot of shade. I've seen Conte get beat up a lot in coverage and in the run. When I say in the run, you kind of move to the side to avoid hitting the back coming at full speed. Like I said, I've seen that quite a few times. But in the NFL, and I think you'll know, and I've had friends that played in this league, the first thing that they say is it's a business. And there's a lot of politics in this game. You're not going to for sure start somebody, a young player, right away unless this guy, you picked him in the first round, or he's just blowing away everybody in camp. That's why you usually don't see rookies and young players start right away out the gate unless they're just blowing it out the water. And usually
right.
Conte, I think with a better pass rush will help not keep him in coverage.
Yeah.
With the lack of pass rush last year, it was easy for receivers to get deep and beat up on the safeties. Justin Evans got beat bad against the Miami game when we had the lead up the slot. I actually watched that whole play develop, but it was because of lack of pass rush. And I've got one thing to say though, Jordan Whitehead, hurry up.
Right.
I said Jordan Whitehead is off to a late start because he was injured. You didn't hear much about him, but he was hurt. I'm telling everybody he was hurt.
Yeah.
So he's off to a late start. But I'm saying hurry up, Jordan Whitehead. And I'm very familiar with Jordan Whitehead, being I'm a Tar Heel fan. We play Pittsburgh.
I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen any news on this, but do you think, there's always a rate of injuries or just maybe just some nagging pains that happen with players every day that don't go reported, because either they're covering it up well or it's just not enough to report or what have you. But do you think that Whitehead is still struggling to come back to 100% because of that injury that he had, or do you think that that is not a factor, and it's more just a mental thing now. I mean, again, I am stretching far out. I'm not saying that he even has a mental issue in his game, say thinking he's going to get re-injured, but I mean, you might think that could be a factor on him getting a slow start.
It's a two-part system, Tony, and you're right. It's hard to say because we're not there. We're not in the room with him.
Yeah.
Injuries when you're hurt, I said you kind of waver to not hurt yourself again because you want to be out there. And the other part too is mental rest. Well, the game is mostly played when you know you got good players from the neck up.
Yeah.
And I said if you understand the verbiage and make sure you're in the right coverage and stuff like that, you'll be on the field. Now, if you're getting blowing coverage and stuff, you won't be out there very long. And I think just a little bit more time, and I think he with the preseason games will come up. You'll get a good look at Jordan Whitehead. And then people will get to see how versatile he is. I don't know if you guys knew, Jordan Whitehead had to play tailback for Pittsburgh. If you don't know, go pull up Jordan Whitehead on Harris highlights on YouTube and pull him up. He had to play tailback for Pittsburgh a few games and did quite well. He's very versatile. So the boy's got talent.
Yeah.
I do got one question that is not Jordan Whitehead. What is going on with Keith Tandy? At the end of the season, this boy looked like we had safety locked up. And then at the end of the season, it looked like this boy had safety locked up. And then all of a sudden, he can't get on the field. So there's the questions I want to know about that as well.
The problem, I don't know if it is a Tandy deal just as much as it's a numbers deal. I think that they didn't draft Tandy with the intention of having him be an everyday starter. Like, that's not their guy. Whitehead is their guy. That's the stock. I mean, he is a late round pick, right? So I mean, there's not that much stock. But I would say if I was to weigh the two, and I'm Cutter, I'm thinking, yeah, you know what? I'm kind of on the hot seat here. I'm going to put more stock on Whitehead. Now, again, Whitehead is behind Tandy in the depth chart, but I do believe that you should see that change in the depth charts to come leading up to the first week of the season. So, but I honestly don't know what is going on with Tandy, but I think that it might have to do with the numbers and the opportunity for some of these players that you're either on the bubble or maybe it looks like they took a step back from last season. Their opportunity to correct that isn't so much in camp because we got to also remember we only see like this much of camp, right? There's a lot of closed practices. There's a lot of practices or training sessions that we don't get to see, right? There's a lot of things that happen behind closed doors, so to speak. But his time to shine is going to be week 1. It's going to be week 2. It's going to be week 3. It's going to be week 4. He has to bring it for 4 weeks to solidify his position, if not a starter, but as a reliable backup because they will need him. They're going to need him. I think that he would be a better starter, than Conte would at any day of the week. But he is doing something that he wasn't doing. He's not doing something that he was doing last year. But, so closing up here, just a real quick take on the Thursday game against the Dolphins. I mean, it's week 1. It's only preseason. And I'll give you a couple minutes just to kind of give your quick take, and I'll give my quick take on it, and then we'll wrap up tonight. So, but what are you expecting to see from Thursday night down in Miami? And any clear watch outs, any position battles that you would watch out for?
Alex Kappa, offensive line. Well, we already know about Ryan Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick's going to start the whole quarter. That's already been said. And it's the secondary I'm really excited about seeing. The defensive line, I want to see the defensive line guys do their thing. I just don't want them to get hurt. I want them to go out there and bang heads a little bit and get, hit somebody else a little bit. But preseason, I'm really scared about injuries. So, I mean, secondary, I'm really looking forward to see with all that versatility. I want to see if they move Jay Stewart to safety a couple times to see what that looks like. And you'll get to see Whitehead, and you'll get to see Justin Evans. You're going to get to see all these packages. I don't expect Grimes to play much, trying to keep the old man fresh. But it's a lot of the moving around. I want to see what Jack Kitchie does. Jack Kitchie was really good blitzing linebacker. at Wisconsin when he was healthy. So I'm interested to see how that goes. And even Devontae Bond played well when he was healthy. You guys forget about him. And don't forget Joe Dirt. Everybody forgot that name already.
Riley.
Yeah, so I mean, you get to see these guys play, and this is a fun part of the year. And I really
and he's second on the depth chart behind Quan, I believe. So I mean, that tells me that he has progressed, and that he will be a reliable backup if something were to happen to Alexander, God forbid. But yeah, I definitely agree. So one thing that I think we need to add as we close up the show is, and I saw a couple people talk about who's going to win. It's always great to see the Bucs win, no matter if it's a preseason or regular season game. But with that said, the scoreboard is not indicative of how far along this team is. The only game that I would say comes even close is week 3, and just the first half. Anything beyond that, sometimes the starters play well into the third quarter if the first half didn't go as well as they planned. But the first half of game 3, that's when the score matters. If the score is not indicative of the Bucs winning, if they're down 0-17 or whatever, then you have issues. But if you get into week 1 and you see a 6-12 to the favor of Miami, I don't see that as a huge issue. Because there is no play script. They're talking about situational plays. They're looking at key position battles, and they're just having those guys sling it out and fight for those positions, and they're wanting to see what they got in certain guys. That's it. They are not managing a game to win. The only person that does that no longer has a job in Rex Ryan, right? And you saw the debacle that happened years ago on that. So that is the exception, not the rule. So don't look so much, guys, at the score, but to the position battles that Blake was talking about. And I very much agree that you need to look at some of the key offensive linemen like Kappa, like Urine, and then look at Smith. I mean, he's going against another fresh body, right, that he hasn't been playing with for the last 2-3 months. So see how he does, because there is a resurgent defense. You got a really good up and coming secondary in the Dolphins. You got Fitzpatrick over there in their secondary as a rookie. So I mean, there's a lot of interesting pieces over in Miami that could upset the Bucs offensive line and maybe give Fitzpatrick a run for its money. So I do think that you're going to see a decent showing. I think that it would ideally you would want the team to drive down the field with a good stretch of plays, maybe 6 or 7 plays, and come out with a touchdown, and maybe have a second drive, and then call it a night for the ones, and let the 2s and the 3s play it out. But thank you guys so much for a great show tonight. Thank you, Blake, for coming on tonight. Thank you, everybody, for watching Tony's Take every Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. And we'll be back here next Tuesday night, and we will have a lot to talk about with the recap of, at that point, of week 1 and any other news that has come up from that point on. So continue to leave your comments and your questions and tell us where you're watching from, and we'll answer them offline as much as we can. So every Tuesday night, as we always end, go Bucs. We'll see you next week.